May 23rd, 2019, Elon Musk Starlink sends these white objects into space. These objects are about to make him a fortune, but they would also come with a cost.
Yeah, put it down. We can't see our solar system clearly anymore.
Has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives, sir? A Ukrainian official says that you have enabled Vladimir Putin as an aggressor. What do you say to that?
Some topics simply keep you up at night, and this was one of them. After hundreds of hours of research, I began to see how everything fit together. I saw that Starlink has the potential to change Africa as we know it. I observed the darkest side effects that this was having. You find out that it's not just one man involved in this space race.
As has often been stated, you can't be number one on Earth if you are number two in space.
And then you discover the ultimate goal that Elon has. On April 2018, Musk starts a business that seems impossible. He forms a company, Starlink, where instead of having the internet on land, let's just put it into space.
Starlink has what's known as a vertically integrated business. They first manufacture these incredibly high-tech satellites on
The
Earth.
satellites, for example, use a SpaceX-developed krypton Hall-effect thruster, which basically shoots out high-speed ions of krypton.
Once the satellites are developed, they use their fleet of rockets to blast them into space. That way, the internet is beamed from above us instead of beside us. All the customer has to do is plug in an antenna from their home, and they get fast internet wherever they are.
It's phenomenal. It's the size of a iPad. You just set it down on the ground, you get high-speed internet.
Weirdly enough, this business has been tried before, but to disastrous effect.
Every other low Earth orbit communications constellation ever done has gone bankrupt.
But with Musk, whatever he seems to touch turns to gold. Rather quickly, Starlink would begin passing important milestones.
We recently passed the strategically notable number of 69,420 active users.
Before long, they had 1,000 satellites deployed, then 2,000, then 6,000. 69,000 customers would turn into 3 million. Service in one continent would turn into all 7, and this would generate a lot of money.
Starlink is currently bringing in $1.4 billion a year in terms of revenue. But Elon Musk expects this number could be about 30 billion in just 3 to 5 years' time. He said total internet connectivity revenue in the world is about $1 trillion, and we think maybe we can access about 3% with Starlink.
Starlink could be an absolute money printer in a short period of time, but not without its controversy. War and space is more of a concept for movies, but now it's become a real thing, except in a completely different way to what you might think. In 2023, Russia attacked Ukraine.
Russia has launched a military assault on Ukraine, hitting targets across the country.
One of the first things that they did was they took out the satellites so Ukraine would have no internet. This way they would be left in a vulnerable position until someone came along.
Russia had actually taken out all of the satellite communications and all of the ground communications except for Starlink. It was the only one that was still operating.
Russia were not happy with this. If Ukraine can't communicate, it gives them a strategic advantage. So they try to jam Starlink's satellites as well. This will completely take out the opposition's communication system, but again, Musk is one step ahead. Starlink has thousands of satellites on orbit at any time. It's like the Bitcoin ecosystem. You can take out one node, but it will still work because there's many more. And even one satellite is hard to destroy because they're designed with agility and they're quick to move. So Russia fail and
Starlink today is the backbone of the Ukrainian military communications.
This would leave a lot of people very pleased with Musk, but not for long.
Has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives, sir? A Ukrainian official says that you have enabled Vladimir Putin as an aggressor. What do you say to that?
Somehow Elon was about to find a way to aggravate not only Russia, but Ukraine too. Starlink is a relatively new company, and one of the biggest struggles with new companies is cash.
With no money, startups easily go bankrupt.
Unfortunately, Starlink giving away their service for free in Ukraine was costing them a lot of this precious commodity. So Musk took to Twitter and explained the company's problem. SpaceX cannot fund the existing system indefinitely. This is unreasonable. And for some reason, this lights up the internet with media backlash coming thick and fast, and his ardent supporters equally quick to defend him. Musk ends up making the decision to relent and keep the service going, but there's about to be an interesting twist. On September the 16th, 2022, a fleet of Ukrainian remote-controlled boats were sailing across the Black Sea to blow up a Russian fleet. These boats were operated with the use of the Starlink service. But then something goes wrong. As they edge towards the target, about 100 km off the coast of Crimea, the boats stop working. A Ukrainian official frantically texts Elon asking him to turn on the satellites to reconnect their boat. But Musk is firm with his answer. Starlink is meant for peaceful use only. Without the use of Starlink, the boats don't work and the surprise attack fails. The question becomes, why did Musk say no? Is he not trying to help Ukraine? That answer would be revealed, as it generally is with Elon, on X. Musk was concerned that if he had agreed to their request to activate Starlink in that region, then SpaceX would be complicit in a major act of war and conflict escalation. The main worry being that the attack could trigger a nuclear response from Russia. That's why Musk made the decision of a firm no, which on one side leaves many happy at the decision to protect the country, but only for defensive purposes, and then the other side angry at the ability of the company to limit access to conflicts where it sees fit. Because you have to realize it's not just this one area where Starlink satellites are used. The Israeli government has a deal where Starlink satellites can be used in Gaza with its approval. Starlink was recently activated in Iran after the government banned the internet due to protests. Whether people like it or not, thanks to Starlink, Elon's influence has spread throughout the world. But this would leave one particular group of people extremely concerned.
With satellites now flooding the night sky, is this the end of astronomy?
One of the great pleasures of the world is looking into space and just thinking, what is out there? How far does it go? What are those sparkling dots in the sky?
They're fireflies. They got stuck up in that big bluish black thing.
The problem with sending satellites into space is our view is affected.
This photo was taken from a telescope in Chile, where normally you get a direct view of the night sky. The telescope is made to capture faraway stars and galaxies. Instead, it captured the light trails of 19 Starlink satellites.
But this is not just a problem for one telescope.
Even the famous Hubble telescope has been compromised. A reported 5% of recent images have contained Starlink satellite trails. The obvious problem is, if we can't get a view of space, how do we study it? How do we enjoy its complexities? How do we monitor asteroids around Earth? How do astronomers continue to operate?
I just really fear that we won't ever be able to find things that we otherwise could have, because we decided that it was more important to have a world with 100,000 satellites.
So Starlink were made aware of these issues, and unlike a lot of companies, they made changes. They upgraded their satellites with a mirror film to reduce the overall brightness and use darker materials to make the satellites less reflective. This makes them almost dim enough to be indistinguishable to the naked eye and helps at least to some extent with the astronomy problem. But the problem that it does not help is arguably the most important issue with these satellites. Just 10 years ago, we had 1,000 satellites hovering in space. That number today is 10,000 and is expected to potentially get as high as 100,000. The problem with having so many satellites in such a dense orbit, well, you might be able to guess.
These satellites have the potential to collide together. If they do, they create space debris that can orbit the Earth for up to centuries at a time.
Increased debris creates even further risk of more crashes, and the problem compounds on itself. This effect is known as the Kessler syndrome.
The risk of the Kessler syndrome is quite low, but if it does occur, the consequences are huge.
Space experts warn that this debris would cripple the satellites used for weather forecasting, stock markets, GPS, and make space unusable.
This is why you see scientists working to make sure that these events never happen, that satellite numbers are manageable, that they're designed safely, and SpaceX are also making moves to lower the risk.
SpaceX equipped their satellites with Hall effect thrusters, which lets them orbit raise, station keep, and deorbit when they're no longer useful. They also use special tracking data to avoid collisions.
But some argue that the real risk is not when these satellites are in orbit, but when they deorbit. A report by the Federal Aviation Administration predicted that in 10 years, Starlink satellites would account for 85% of the risk to people on the ground and on planes from falling space junk. It's said by 2035, if Starlink satellites survive re-entry, the total number of hazardous fragments each year is expected expected to reach 28,000, which means that one person on the planet would be expected to be injured or killed every 2 years. That doesn't sound like a fun way to go. But SpaceX would read this report and be furious. They responded saying, the report relied on a deeply flawed analysis that falsely characterized re-entry disposal risks. Due to a lack of knowledge, a flawed methodology, and an over-reliance on an outdated NASA study, aerospace has provided a distorted analysis that makes preposterous, unjustifiable, and inaccurate claims regarding Starlink's disposal risks to people on the ground and to aviation. Essentially, they're saying the report was nonsense because the satellites actually burn up when they enter Earth's atmosphere. So they're not just going to randomly hit a poor citizen as they go for their morning walk. With Starlink, there seem to be two groups of people. One who's saying it's ruining space as we know it and providing unnecessary risks, and the other saying the negative risks are minimal and the positives far outweigh these.
It makes me wonder, like, collectively, if we look 50 years in the future, which will be better for humanity? Giving access of internet to people that currently literally don't have internet right now, or continuing the same level of, ground-based observations that we have today?
Could you imagine if Africa gets a chance to have the internet? Think of the lives that it could change. Think of the education that it could give and has already given.
It's an incredible change in terms of what we can do in class now. It's a very important educational tool, not just for us, but all schools.
When people solve their own problems and have access to knowledge and information, they change their own lives, they change their region's lives.
Starlink's ability to impact the world is profound. Provide internet to the billions that don't already have it will help the world and make Starlink a lot of money. This naturally attracts the attention of some very powerful people. Before I show you these, we've got some interesting things to show you for the sponsor of today's video. On January 20th, 2025, the future of energy production around the globe experienced a significant shift. Donald Trump's declaration of a national energy emergency on Inauguration Day was designed to expedite approvals for energy infrastructure, including nuclear power. President Trump's pick to head the US Energy Department, Chris Wright, has said he sees nuclear power as part of the domestic energy strategy. Right to the north of its border in Saskatchewan, Canada, resides one of the world's most promising uranium jurisdictions, the Athabasca Basin. Canada has recently reinforced its commitment to nuclear energy. This renewed focus encompasses policy endorsements, strategic investments, and technological advancements. They're also on track to become the world's largest uranium supplier, where experts project that Canada's national uranium production could double by 2035. The sponsor of today's video, Mustang Energy, ticker symbol MECPF, which is focused on Canada's Athabasca Basin. Nuclear energy has experienced a notable resurgence. AI data centers and electric vehicles are driving up electricity demand. What's interesting about this entire situation is that uranium's spot price is down 36% since its peak, meaning that this is potentially a great time to conduct due diligence on Mustang Energy. Its key projects are Ford Lake, close to major uranium deposits like Cameco's Millennium and Denison's Griffin. You've got Cigar Lake East and Rough Rider South, located near Cigar Lake Mine, one of the world's highest grade uranium mines. Yellowstone and Yellowstone East, close to Clough Lake Mine, which produced over 62 million pounds of uranium. And Dutton, close to the Virgin River Shear Zone, which hosts known high-grade uranium deposits. The significance of Mustang's energy potential lies in the location of these projects, the Athabasca Basin. MECPF's projects are in close proximity to major uranium discoveries. The Athabasca Basin is one of the world's largest and highest-grade uranium mines. Mustang Energy owns multiple projects strategically located near these uranium giants. This is my first uranium company that I am featuring during the Trump Nuclear Renaissance Research. Mustang Energy, ticker symbol MECPF. Okay, let's see these people that are competing in the space race. There's a few very wealthy and powerful people involved in this space race. The company who is closest right now is the one founded by the man right beside Elon Musk on the rich list. Jeff Bezos' Amazon have Project Kuiper, which has the exact mission as Starlink, to offer internet across the globe using satellites. They want to launch a constellation of 3,236 26 satellites into low Earth orbit and have already launched their first 2 prototypes.
Project Kuiper has some of the same advantages as Starlink. Billionaire founder, significant resources, and of course connections that come with being one of the world's biggest companies.
But what they don't have is the resources compared to this next group.
And now space watchers are warning that China could launch 13,000 satellites to disrupt Starlink.
Meanwhile, China is working on a mega constellation of satellites it plans to challenge Elon Musk's SpaceX.
Competition between the US and China. Well, that competition is now taking place on a new battleground.
The battleground is satellites in space. China's military want to launch more than 4 times the satellites of Amazon in their quest to develop a mega constellation. Reportedly, Chinese academics were impressed with Starlink's ability to help serve Ukraine in times of duress, which sparked more urgency in China to make their own system. A Beijing academic said, "The focus now is to accelerate the development of China's own constellation and explore defensive measures against Starlink-type foreign satellites." They have now developed the Shanghai Action Plan, which aims to build a space information industry worth more than $28.2 billion by 2025. The initiative contributes to President Xi's national goal of making China a powerful aerospace country. This mission is not just a Chinese mission though. Russia are developing satellite internet too, which they've dubbed the Sphere. The Sphere is intended not only to beam high-speed internet down to Earth, but provide satellite TV, Earth imaging services, and surveillance capabilities. Sounds pretty ominous. And then you've got a whole other continent trying to get into this game as well.
Europe want its own satellite mega constellation to compete with Starlink. They hope to reach full capacity by 2027, where they already have big names on board.
Somehow I seem to doubt Europe a little bit more than the others. I mean, what have the EU produced that is big over the past 50 years? Either way, the competition between both companies and countries is heating up, but right now it's one man who's clearly in the lead. When Elon puts his mind to something, he seems to win. But what is this reason he's so focused around Starlink? The answer is obvious for why a government wants a satellite constellation. But what is Elon's reason? It can't just be to make more money, gain more power, have more influence. He's already the richest man in the world. He owns one of the biggest social media platforms. He's CEO of one of the most influential companies in the world. I can't think of someone with more worldly achievements than Elon. The key reason why Musk is sending these satellites revolve around this one rocket. This is Starship, and it's no ordinary rocket. 397 feet high, 30 feet wide, and capable of carrying 150 metric tons of payload, Starship is the largest and most powerful vehicle ever to fly. Built at Starbase, its very own exclusive spaceport in Texas. This rocket has one mission. No, it's not to send a spaceship to Uranus as he tweets, but it's kind of close. The goal is to send Starship to a planet 140 million miles from here, Mars.
In order to make Mars work, we need kind of the next generation of rockets and spacecraft. And we think we've got something that will enable people to move to Mars.
But unlike with the moon, the goal is not just to get there once and then come back and get a nice pat on the back. The goal is to build a colony.
Starship is capable of getting 1 million tons to the surface of Mars and creating a self-sustaining city. And I think we should try to do that as soon as we can.
Imagine day-to-day life but on a brand new planet. Think of what type of environment we can set up. Think of the things we might discover. Imagine a future with reusable rockets going back and forth between the two planets, just like we currently have with planes and countries. But in order to build this vision, build this rocket that is capable of colonizing Mars, you need money. What is the part of SpaceX's business that is capable of generating a lot of money?